So what is this personal brand thing we're talking about? What is it? What does it mean? Does it actually have, oops, we've lost our shared screen. Does it have a meaning that is meaningful to people? Or is it just one of those fancy words that seems to have taken on the last few years? Well, a personal brand is what people say and think about you when you're not around. Just like a brand is for a company, it's what people think of you. It's a bit of reputation. It's a bit about what you do. It's what you're known for, who you are as a person, but who you are also as a business owner. So there are quite a few different definitions of it, but they all tend to be around what people's impressions are out there rather than what you say they are. And most of us are kind of slaves to a personal brand, whether we know it or not. And I'll discuss that a bit later. There's some examples of personal brands in a couple of celebrities. Kylie Jenner, she's known for being on reality TV, keeping up with the Kardashians, lip fillers. She suddenly one day sprouted very, very thick lips that weren't there before. And now she's known for them. She's known for makeup, selling makeup, wearing makeup, being very fake, having a lot of Photoshop touch-ups on her photos on Instagram, particularly. She's known for having a huge, one of the biggest social media followings in the world. She's a billionaire in her own right and is known for being very unfriendly and very unapproachable. And that's part of her appeal, is that she doesn't want to be friendly or approachable. She just wants to be, almost like American royalty. So the same way that Prince Harry or Meghan would be sort of the more approachable side of the royal family, then Charles and Camilla and Pippa and all the other, I think Kate or the Duke and Duchess or the Prince and Princess of Wales. I'm calling all the wrong things now. And his and her majesties, they're not very approachable, but they are considered to be quite friendly compared to the more aloof monarchy we've had before. All personal brands, they like that. But a complete opposite to Kylie would be this guy. His name is Tom Holland, and he's mostly known for his roles in a string of Spider-Man movies. He's cute, he's sweet, he's polite, he's friendly, he's approachable. He's all the things that Kylie Jenner is not. And he's this charmingly English gentleman. He's always helpful, helping out with charities, turns up to movie screenings in costume and does acrobatics on stage without letting people know, turns up to hospitals, visits the sick. He's that charming, very, very active in the community, wants to be much more approachable than what, say, someone like, Kylie Jenner would be. A very, very different approach, very, very different brands, but also looking against it, very, very different ideals in their lives. So it makes you think, what do your colleagues, what are your friends, what are your family, and what do others think about you when you're not around? Which also then gets us to thinking, well, I don't care what others think of me. I just should be judged on my merit, not my personal reputation. Especially when it comes to business, you think that quality goods, good customer service, all those things should be enough for people to choose you over the competition for your business. Unfortunately, it's just not. It's just not enough anymore. We simply know now that people don't necessarily choose from a list of pros and cons. They don't necessarily make logical decisions when they decide to buy a product or subscribe to a service or to hire someone in. It much happens because of an emotional connection or some sort of emotional reason than any other reason at all. And when I think about it too, like I have a very, very defined personal brand that I've worked very hard on over the last year and a half, particularly. And I sort of thought that I didn't want to be anxiously obsessed with what people thought of me. And it's not about that. We're not trying to become so anxious about what people, think of us. What we want to be, though, is comfortably in control of telling our own story. That's very different than being obsessed with what people think of us. That sort of a session is unhealthy, and you're never going to win that. But being comfortably in control of telling your own narrative, that's a whole different story. What it means is that you're telling enough that that's what people will think, as opposed to telling nothing and letting people make up things inside their heads. Because after all, we already have a personal brand, whether we like it or not. People already have opinions about us. People already think about us in certain ways and shapes and forms. We just don't necessarily know what they're thinking, or we haven't put a lot of thought or even, even stopped to go, wow, people actually think of me. But there is a certain level they think of us. Now, it's not as obsessive as what we may think of ourselves. After all, people spend 98% of the time thinking about themselves. 1% of the time thinking about those closest to them, and about 1% of the time thinking about anyone else. But you do still have a personal brand, and that comes out in people's heads. They're not going to tell you what those things are. So why personal brand has become so important in the last 10 years, particularly, is because I suppose information is much more easily available about who we are as people, from LinkedIn profiles to Facebook profiles, Instagram profiles, to our activities online, websites about us, information in news articles about us, all the SEO we do about ourselves and our business that's out there. There's tons of information. I go and Google myself sometimes and get shocked by the amount of information that's out there. But I've also actively participated in putting that information out there over the last 20 years, let alone the last 10. And because of that, it gives us opportunities. So we want to walk through the ladder of life. Well, we've got to think that sometimes that it's not only our merits and our hard work that get us there, but some of the work we've done to be someone who is approachable, friendly, hireable, bankable, someone who is investable, someone who people just feel like they're attracted to because we seem to fit the journey that they're on. We're meeting them at their point in the ladder of their lives as well. It's also one of those things where we go, how easily do we move through life? Like, for instance, the last couple of years, while they've been very hard professionally for me, I haven't had to have an interview or reference check since 2003, because there is simply a lot out there about me in the industries I've worked with. I was being very well known. So the last the two contracts that I've taken up with CDU and Darwin Innovation Hub, I didn't actually have to go through an interview or reference check process, because I was brought in by request from them because of what they knew that I'd already done. It's very obvious out there online what I do. Just go to my LinkedIn profile and you can see all that. And you can see the social proof by people interacting with me as well, that I clearly have some idea of what I'm doing. I'm very aware of what I'm doing, but I'm also very competent at what I do as well. So they don't need to do those checks and balances because they've got a whole bunch of people on social media that make it really obvious for me. So that's one thing that obviously having a strong personal brand has been very much as an advantage to me. Another thing is that nearly 35% of the Australian workforce, and this is not even business owners, this is like just the workforce is made up of freelancers and contract workers. So they are business owners of a type, but they tend to be those gig workers, right? Nearly 35% of the workforce is made up of us. That is really scary. But what's scary is that 70% of employers will actually admit that they go and screen potential employees via their social media and Google searches. That's essentially what they did with me. Both DIH and CDU knew who I was because of what I'd done. And it was so easy to find that stuff online. So that's been an advantage for me. 43% of employers actually admit checking on staff's social media in order to see what they're up to and whether they're complying with behavioral standards and codes of conduct and all that sort of thing. So it's something which actually happens out there. Now, you can't control someone putting a photo up of you doing something silly in your youth. That's not really what anyone's looking for, but you have complete control about what you put out through your own channels on social media platforms and websites. So you don't really necessarily need to do anything like that. You don't need to, relax. You don't need to kick back with other people and relying upon what they say about you when there's enough information out there about what you do on your own back. So I've got a few examples here of some who've been doing what I think is a very, very good job of their personal branding. Some of these people you may know, some of the people you may not know. The first one, pretty popular, Marie Kondo or Kondo Marie, the Japanese organizational expert. She is always on brand. Everything about her has always been around about organization. It's even so well known that her whole approach to life is, if it doesn't spark joy, throw it out. So if something doesn't spark a certain joy in you, then get rid of it. Stop cluttering up your life full of things that do not matter. And it's a very strong philosophy. Now, I have never watched Marie Kondo's television show. I've never read a single book of hers. I've never even read an article that she's written, but I know all about her. I know that that's her thing. I know about the sparking joy because of the amount of stuff that's been said about her, that she's very carefully crafted, carefully curated, and carefully distributed around the internet about herself. And that's what caused her to get picked up for a book, then get picked up for a TV series, so that she's now this international superstar. Another example is Brené Brown. Now, Brené Brown is, yes, she's an academic and worked in universities. She's a Texan mum. But there's nothing that outstanding about her. There has never been anything you can look in her resume and go, wow, you should be a superstar. But she is a superstar. made millions, speaks all around the world, a highly sought after speaker and researcher in what she does. She works in the realm of empathy and in feeling better about yourself, self-improvement, essentially. Brene Brown's point of difference is that she has carefully crafted and curated a public relations image of herself, of the straight talking, straight shooting Texan mum who wants to help women to be able to be more empowered. And she's certainly done that. And she's quite a star in this area. But she's the one to tell you all the time that she is no star. She is no example. She's always messing up. And that vulnerability that she's putting forward, and that's what she's very much known for, is vulnerability, is what her personal brand is. It makes her very, very relatable to other mums who are trying to do their work and trying to achieve things in their life, but also be the best possible mums they can. She's that person. Her personal brand is so well defined for that audience that she's so known for it all around the world. Has released countless books. Now, Lisa Wattigo, you may not know her, but she's one of the fellow trainers on the Facebook or the Meta training group that I'm in. But she's very well known in Indigenous business networks. She was the person who started up Black Coffee as a movement and a community movement in Australia. It's now spread over everywhere, including Darwin, where I happen to be, although I'm in Brisbane this week. That's why I got a different background. But Lisa is very much known for her T-shirt range, where it says, "I see deadly people," and different sort of very provocative statements on T-shirts. And you can see them in the back on the rack there is some of those T-shirts that she sells. Now, every time I see Lisa, she's either wearing one of those T-shirts or the Meta T-shirt when she's representing Meta. But when she's not representing Meta, she's representing herself, and she's always wearing hers. A very big person in Supply Nation for Indigenous supply through to government tenders and corporate contracts. She's very much a very in-demand trainer and a very in-demand speaker all around, particularly Queensland, but I would say in Indigenous communities right across Australia. She knows who she is, and that's the key, that these people are very clear about what they're about. They're very consistent on who they show up as. They always show up on brand, always show up as the same person, always show up as someone who it's very clear what they're about. They're easy to find. You can look up any of these people and find tons of information about them, but they also realize that they are not for everyone. And that's something I didn't learn until very late in my life, is that I'm also not for everyone. Not everyone likes me. Not everyone's going to like me. And I'm okay with that because I know who my target is. And it's important that I connect with them, but I'm not going to connect with everybody because I'm clearly not for everybody. That's what's lessons for you as a personal brand is remember, you're not for everybody. So when you say, "Oh, who's your potential customer?" You go, "Oh, anyone." It's like, no, they're not. They're never anyone. They're never everyone. It's always a really specific subset of people who you are able to draw towards you, not because of just what you do or what you sell, but also, of course, who you are. That's going to help people to be appealing to you. So how do you know if your personal brand's on point? How do you know if it's a really good one? Well, the first one is that you're still friends with the people you used to work with before, or with those you used to live near before moving. I have friends all over Australia. In everywhere I've worked, everywhere I've had some kind of interaction with people, I've got people all over Australia that I can stay with, I can meet up with for coffee, grab dinner with, join in and do workshops with, and I'm friends with all the people I used to work with. There's very few people who I don't have some kind of good, positive relationship with that I worked with before. And that's simply because I haven't changed between them now. There's fundamental things about me, it's about my personality that remain solid right through my life. And when I did a bit of an exercise in what my values were, and we'll look at that in a second, what your values might be, that's one of those things that keeps you consistent throughout life. If you're being truly in integrity with your values, and I will really cover this in a second because it's so important, then you're going to be in integrity and people are going to see that. You'll remain friends because you don't really change. You are the same great person that they knew. People will randomly ask for advice from you in your area of expertise. I'm always, every single day, getting help with my social media. What can I do? I'm I'm stuck with this. Can you help? And 90% of the time I can shoot back a quick email and solve the problem for them. In the cases where I can't, I can at least point them to where to go. And that's because I position myself as someone who can help, particularly with Facebook, but also with LinkedIn as well. People who have access issues, people who have problem with reaching their audience. That's something that I can very simply respond to because I have extensive experience in that. So you would have the very same thing, something that you have extensive experience in that you're known for. People also refer customers to you without being asked to or being given an incentive to. You're not paying people to do it. They're not doing it out of obligation. They simply do it because they know you and they know what you do. And it's very clear. So when someone comes to them and says, I'm looking for X, they go, oh, I know someone who does X. And they'll be able to refer you straight away. That's a really good thing. That's word of mouth. And if you get no word of mouth in your work and what you do, then you may need to look at that and go, well, where am I falling short? How is it that the people around me don't know what I do? My friends know exactly what I do. Everybody in my circle, my family, friends, associates, they know exactly who I am and what I do and who to refer to me. And they refer with absolute abandon. Every week I get referrals all over the place. And that's where you can be too with a solid personal brand. So how do we start a personal brand? How does it begin? How does it become that first step? The first step is those values that I was talking about before. Values are important because they are the basis of who you are. So what are your values? Your values could be something like you're authentic, you're hustling, you're about love, you're about empowerment, you're about changing the world, you're tidy, you are about doing things slowly, you're all about self-sufficiency. You could be progressive, conservative, wealthy, you have wisdom, you are big about being approachable. My own personal ones is to be authentic, honest, approachable, effective, and vulnerable. They're my 5. And I know them off the top of my head because they are very, very important to me. So what you do, not from necessarily from this list, you go from Brene Brown, actually, look at Brene Brown values and look at her big list, the massive list where you can just choose out those values and try to whittle it down to 3. 5 is really hard to remember. So I only know it because I do it so often to explain them. So try and whittle down your value to 3. And those 3 things are the things that you are on your good days and your bad days. So even on a bad day, I still feel like I'm authentic. I still feel like I'm honest. I still feel like I'm approachable, even though I may not want to be. I know that it's so important for me to remain approachable, even if I'm not in the mood to be. And one way to pick yourself up on this is before you go into any meeting or go in to meet any client or step on a stage to speak or go in to meet someone and shake their hand, give yourself a check and say, am I showing up as my values today? Am I doing that? And I have to do that. I have to make sure I do that even when I step on an aircraft. And because I know that I'm going to have cabin crew talking to me and different people talking to me in the airport. So I just go, am I this person today? If I'm not, switch it on. Switch it on. And if it's something which is something that you can do on your good and your bad days, it's very easy to switch it on because it's actually a part of who you are. Secondly, who are you and what do you want to accomplish? And this might take a bit of time. You might have to take a big, long, hard look in the mirror at who you are and what actually motivates you. Things like, what drives you? What are you very good at? What drains you? What fuels you? What environments do you work best in? What industries do you find the most interesting? Where do you want to be at the end of your career? Or what impact do you want to have? Or what legacy you want to leave behind? All these things drive that question of who you are and what you want to accomplish. You need to be clear on those things, not so you know where you're going in life, but because when you have these things, it's like a rudder that's turned into a certain direction that allows you to easily then communicate what answers are to all these questions. So if you know the answers to those questions, then you know how to choose the right kind of people around you. And when you know who you are and what you're doing and all that, then you know who are the people that are going to come and gather around you. And you want to be around people who are driven by similar things to you. You want to be around people who see value in what you've got to say. You want to be around people who are likely to want to follow what you do. And that little community building effort is so important because where you can't reach, people in your community and people who are in your following and your audience, they can reach those people. Number 3, what are you great at and what do you love doing? In the intersection of that, you've got the opportunity to find the things that you're great at because you're likely to do them again because you're very good at them, but also the things you love doing, the things that spark joy, like Kondo Marie would say. What do you love doing? And the reason why I ask what do you love doing, because you're much more likely to wake up on those bad days and still want to do it because you love doing it. My job and my work, I absolutely live for. I love it. I wake up every morning and I don't feel like, oh, another day of work. I wake up and bounce out of bed and can't wait to get started. It's so much variety, so many different people I get to meet. So that part of you, find that intersection between what you're great at and what you love doing. There's an exercise which I won't go into here, but it's excellent. When I did it, I was surprised by when I combined what I love the most in life and what I'm great at. I came up with exactly what I happen to be doing. So I use this process called Ikigai. Ikigai is basically, maybe translated as your purpose in life. So you look at what you love to do, what the world needs, what can make you money, and what skills do you already have? So that's like what I said, what can you do well and what do you already love is half of the Ikigai. But the rest of the Ikigai is what you need and what the money is. Once you've got this sorted, you understand what your passion is, what your mission is, what your vocation is, what your profession is. And it's so simple to go, oh, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. These are the things that I do. These are the things I'm into. These are the things I'm known for. And you can easily build a personal brand around that intersection of those things. For instance, in my love, I had that I'm a Star Trek fan. I love Star Trek probably more than any other franchise of anything that's ever been produced. I absolutely love it. It's something I really, really enjoy doing. When it comes to the skills, well, then I'm not really sure about the skills because, well, I've got so many of them. So the skills are certainly not in Star Trek because that's a fantasy environment. So with all that in mind, you come across with the thing that you are known for. Number 4 is what is uniquely you? What is it about you that is so unique? And that could be something like, what are your specific strengths? What are the things that you are very, very good at? And then you maybe can take those with what you get complimented on, what you've excelled at and done really well at in the past, what you do better than most other people. These are all the strengths that you then start to write about on things like social media. You start talking about them. You do workshops about those things, not about the things you know nothing about, but the things you know you're really good at. There's a reason why I'm doing a workshop today about personal branding, because it's something I'm really good at. I'm very strong in that area. Who are your people? Who are the people who are going to gather around you? Now, that will depend upon what your interests are. If you know who you are, then you will know who your audience is going to be. So let's just say if you had a broad area of interest, it's probably going to be a lot easier to find people. But when you find a specific type of people within that broad interest of area and a specialized area of expertise within that broad interest area, then you're going to find your people. So you start off with something really wide because basically, whatever is broad is kind of already saturated. If you want to help people, that's great. But there's a billion people out there in the world who want to help people. So we need to find that niche because it's more open. It's more open to new people coming into it. And it's much better for those people who are looking for very specific people to solve very specific problems in their life, their business, their education, their careers, whatever it is that you're offering to them. So let's just say, for instance, I want to help women. I don't just want to help women because that's saturated. I want to help women from migrant backgrounds. Great. Okay, that's a little bit more specific, but still very, very well covered. I want to help women from migrant backgrounds gain employment in Australia. That's where you get really super specific. So it's very easy to describe who you are and what you're doing. Number 6, it's time to bring that brand online. And that's all through things like a website. You'll get your own personal website. I'm talking about your name. If you want a personal brand, get a website with your name. I've got my Clickstarter website for my business. I've got my other business website, Speakstarter. I've got my personal website, DanteStJames.com. And that's all about me and what I offer as a consultant, as a speaker, and as a presenter. So that's my own personal website. I've got my own personal social media area. So I've got my company page of Dante St James on both Facebook and LinkedIn. I've got my TikTok. I've got my Instagram. I don't really use Instagram and TikTok a hell of a lot, but Facebook and Instagram, in LinkedIn especially, I'm really active on there. And you'll pick the thing that works most for you, the thing that makes sense to you. And then you need to actually make content on those things. And that really helps people to understand what your personal brand is, because you're essentially answering questions that they are asking without them even having to ask them. So these 5 questions are kind of the center of what you may want to write. Now, I've got a mini course online about this at my dantestjames.com one, which is answers how to use these questions and write something about them. First one is, what can I teach? What have I noticed? So what can I teach is about, what do you know? What's the expertise you have that you can easily turn into a workshop or into an ebook or into a social media post? What have you noticed? It's like an observation you've made in life, observation of clients, observation of industry trends. How do you think differently is your point of difference? How do you approach things differently? What is the different questions you ask? How do you see a very common problem in a very different way? And every single one of us has our little spin on things, our unique approach to things. What tools and tips can you deliver as a list? That's kind of related to your what can I teach, except you're making it like a top 3 or a top 5 or a top 10 list of answers to specific common questions. The how did this outcome happen question is simply starting the answer with the end. So you go, this happened, and this is how we made it happen. And it's a really compelling thing because that's storytelling. And with storytelling, just like the what have I noticed, you're telling a story of something you've noticed. I find that question number 2 and question number 5 are the ones that always do the best for me in terms of social media engagement, because they're stories. They're more personal. They've got something in there that's about me. So not just about what I do. You think, well, shouldn't people just pick things on merit? I think we've already covered that. People don't always make decisions based upon completely logical backgrounds. If you want to learn more about personal brand, I've actually got my free mini course online at stjames.link/personal brand. And this is where you can find my own mini course. It's a 5-week mini course. What it is 1 episode a week. So I'll send it to you. If you were to join today, you would get another module next week. And they're all just about 10 minutes long. Very, very, very short to get you in that right mindset to be able to understand what the personal brand process is and the things you can do to really optimize that to be something that really speaks out about you. So feel free to go along to that. I really appreciate your download on that. And it's absolutely free. You don't have to, you're not going to get onto a sales funnel. Once you give me your email address, it'll just get sent the course and you won't get sent anything else, I promise you.